them in front with Sky Classic running by him. Sky Classic takes the lead, but Fraze is coming up the inside, and Quest for Fame is closing third. Sky Classic fully extended. Fraze on the inside, and Fraze!
Hello, it's Bob Pandolfo on Wednesday, June 5th, 2024. Welcome to Power Pace with Pandy, and we're going to talk about speed figures. And the reason why I opened up this video with the video of Fraze winning the Breeders' Cup Turf back in 1992 was because of speed figures. That's one of the horses I want to talk about. But I'm going to talk about how to use speed figures and what they mean. And this is not just for beginners. Even people that are advanced handicappers, I think, will benefit from this video. Thanks everybody for tuning in. And back in 1992, I was doing speed figures for the New York Racing Association official track program. I had been doing them for years for a paper called Racing Action, which was an affiliate of Sports Eye. And we had different publications, and I was a handicapper and a writer for Sports Eye and also for Racing Action. And I was doing the speed figures for Racing Action. And then when the New York Racing Association asked me to put speed figures in their track program, I did some work on the tables that I was using, the parallel timetables, because I wanted to improve my turf figures. I was a little skeptical about how accurate turf speed figures were, but after making all these adjustments on my tables that year and improving all my turf speed figures, they actually worked very well, and I was surprised. I really was, because turf, a lot of times the races are run at a slower pace, and of course the distances are a little sketchy sometimes because of where the starting gate is placed, and also of course they race off the rail sometimes, whereas on a dirt track they start in the same place, whereas the turf courses, they have rails that they put out to protect the inside. So if they're doing a lot of turf racing, they'll put the rails, say, out 10 feet or 12 feet, 15 feet, and they'll keep moving them around so that the horses aren't always racing on the same part of the turf, and it protects the turf so they can race on it, and have it in good condition. And that can change the time, because then the horses are running in different spots on the course. Nevertheless, I found that my turf figures were surprisingly good, and my figures, really worked good that year because I improved all my tables. I only did that for about a year, I think, for the track program, because then Equibase then came out with their track. They had their own figures. So once Equibase had their own figures, they incorporated that into the track program at Aqueduct, Belmont, Saratoga. But I kept doing the figures. I did them for about 10 years on my own too. After Racing Action stopped publishing, I continued to have a service where I would, I had subscribers for my figures. I'm glad I did that. It was a lot of work, but I'm glad I had that 10-year period or so where I did my own figures, because I really, that's how I got to understand what speed figures mean. The reason why I show you Fraze is because coming into the Breeders' Cup that year, the two horses that had the top figures in the country on my figures, my own turf figures, were Lure and Fraze. And I picked Lure to win in the Breeders' Cup mile on turf. And he won and paid $16 and set a course record at Gulfstream, which was a full second faster than anyone had ever run on the course, 1:32 and 4. And he paid like 16 and change. Lure was, one of the fastest milers I've ever seen. He's a Hall of Fame horse. And then Fraze won the mile-and-a-half Breeders' Cup turf in a really tough field. There was, some really tough imports in there. It was an excellent field. And Fraze was 12-1 odds. And I picked him and bet. So I bet both of those horses. I had a really good, 1992 Breeders' Cup, as did my customers, because of these two long shots that won on turf. And like I said, they had the two top turf figures in North America, and they had very, very strong turf figures coming into this Breeders' Cup. So it was funny, because here I had updated my tables, and then it ended up at the end of the year in the Breeders' Cup, I ended up having these really nice, hits. So I want to go back now, and I wanted to talk about a race from this past Monday, June 3rd, at Parks. Now I've been giving out, the last week or so, Belmont was closed because they're going to race at Saratoga starting tomorrow and Thursday. They're going to race a short meet there, 4 days. Have the Belmont Stakes is going to be raced at Saratoga this year. So I've been putting horses on my website and putting them on the free page like spot plays, and they've been really doing well. And mostly maiden races, which is I really like maiden races. So the horse I gave out on Monday was Star of Caesare, something like that. And I like this horse because now he had run a couple of even races on synthetic track at Turfway, and then he got on dirt, and he didn't break well in this race. But the thing is too is I went back and I looked at the race, and this horse Tiger's Legacy was a sharp drop down that who really ran a strong race, and then the third place finisher came back. I looked at this field at Parks and I thought, oh, this is a much weaker field. And then I liked that he had changed trainers. You could see that he changed from the Amos Bond to Edward Coletti, and his works really picked up over the Parks track. You had a bullet work here, and then he had this 47-3. So I thought this horse was ready to run a much better race. And here's the chart of the race, and I have a reason for showing you this. Now, as you can see, Cracked the Code. This horse had been 0 for 23, but he looked all right on paper. In fact, here's my system power pace. If you rate him on average speed, it picked the 1-6, and so the 6 had was tied for second best speed figure in the race. But he had been 0 for 23, and I used the 1 and the 4 in the exactas with the 2 horse, so I didn't have the exacta. The 6 was a horse you could have thrown in. It turned out the exacta, paid really good, 81.40. But I bet the horse to win, Star of Caesare, and then played the exactas with the 1 and 4. So you look at this race, right? And just look at this right here, and what do you think? What do you think happened, right? You're going to think, well, Crack the Code was much the best here, right? But what happened in this race, the 2 horse got blocked and shuffled. Look at the comment. Star of Caesare, saved ground, rallied on the turn, was blocked and steadied at the top of the stretch, then continued well once clear. So this is where speed figures get a little tricky. Now what's going to happen here is that, obviously Crack the Code is going to have a pretty good speed figure because he won by 7.5 lengths. Star of Caesare's speed figure, though, is not going to be really indicative of the improvement that this horse showed, because this horse got blocked as he was coming up. He had a lot of run. Like on the turn, I thought he was going to win. Now Crack the Code, though, started to make a nice move. It looked like Star of Caesare had enough run to stay with him. But as he was, coming up, he got blocked. And he got shuffled and jammed in. Then he got out and he finished really well. So if he hadn't got blocked, my guess is that he probably would have finished second, maybe lost the race by like 1.5 lengths or something like that. Maybe even less than, maybe a half a length. It's possible that he would have been even closer. But I mean, what happened was, since he got blocked as he was rushing up into contention, Crack the Code got the jump on him. So Crack the Code really wasn't that impressive here. He just, it was a weak field. It was a $20,000 maiden claim. He just found the right spot, and he got a little lucky that the 2 horse got jammed in. To tell you the truth, I mean, he may not. I mean, it's possible that he may not even won the race. My guess is he would have won, but it would have been by a much smaller margin. I think it would have been, close, like maybe a length and a half length, maybe, because when when a horse gets his momentum stopped, which is what happened to Star of Caesare, that's, I mean, he was coming up and then boom, had to stop, and then he got going again. So his speed figure next time out is going to be significantly lower than it would have been if he didn't get blocked, right? And this is where speed figures can be a little misleading, and why you always have to try to understand how horses run, how the race was run. You can't put 100% of faith into speed figures, especially one speed figure. And that's why I like to use averages. Like I have two systems, Power Pace and Formula Pro. Formula Pro averages 3 races to give you an average speed figure, and Power Pace averages 2. That's much more indicative of a horse's ability, because you're getting at least a little bit of a capsule of the horse's best recent speed figures, rather than just looking at one race. And that's why too is that handicappers that were watching this race, who are good trip handicappers, they're going to know next time out, when Star of Caesar is running, that he would have ran probably about 6 points higher on his speed figure, because he would have been much closer, right? So these are the little things that you have to look at. Now, I just want to talk about speed figures a little bit too, just overall. Going back to the PPs here, when I was doing speed figures years ago, I really became an expert in making figures. And once you make figures like that for like 10 years, like I did for all the major racetracks, you really get to know the ins and outs and what these figures really mean. All right, so let's look at how things have changed in racing. Now, in American racing, you have a lot more turf races, and you have synthetic racing. All right, so now you have 3 surfaces. Years ago, there were only 2 surfaces, and there was a lot less turf racing. But turf racing is very popular, so a lot of these tracks, they like you'll see in New York some days, they'll have 9 races and 6 of them will be on turf. So what does that mean? Well, that means that the speed figures on on dirt that day may not be quite as accurate, because when you're making speed figures, let's just say you have a 9 race card and all races are on dirt, like running an aqueduct during the winter, right? Let's just stick to the New York circuit for now. Well, you're probably going to get a good accurate speed figure for the day. You have 9 races that you can average out, right? If you're at Saratoga and it's a 9 race card, and you have 6 turf races and 3 dirt races, now you're only averaging 3 dirt races. And let's just say one of them was oddly slow, because there was a slow pace in that race. Maybe it was a 1 mile and an eighth race of 3-year-olds that weren't that good, and somebody says slow pace. Now you have one of the races that you can't even use, because that race isn't going to be good for the averages. It's going to bring the average down too much. So now you're averaging 2 races instead of 9. It's a huge difference. Now the speed figures from that day, the dirt speed figures, are suspect. All right, because you're basically trying to take a guess based on 2 races, and it's numerically, there's more of a flaw in the entire system of creating speed figures when you don't have that much to work with. You don't have a foundation that way. So you have to be aware of that any day where there's not that many dirt races, they may not even be that accurate. And that's why sometimes you'll see huge differences. Like, for instance, these here that I'm showing you are the the Brisnet speed figures, right? In the Brisnet past performances. These are the ultimate Brisnet past performances. Then, of course, you have the Bayer figures, and you have time form figures, which are also sold by the Daily Racing Form. And you have Trackmaster Equibase figures. So sometimes I've seen horses that ran a big, let's just say they ran a big Brisnet speed figure when they broke their maiden. They ran like a 95. And then I look at the Bayer, and the Bayer has it like 80. For some reason, Bayer didn't think that was that impressive that day, whoever was doing the Bayer figures. And then the Trackmaster figure has it at 95. So Trackmaster thought it was fast. And then Time Form has it somewhere in the middle, right? So it's like, wait a minute, was it fast? Was it a really fast race or not? And you see, that's the thing. And they don't always agree, these people who are doing these speed figures. When they do agree, and I usually, when I'm handicapping the Naira card, I actually look at 3 different speed figures. I look at the Daily Racing Form Bayer figure. I look at these figures on Trackmaster, on Brisnet, and I look at the Trackmaster speed figure, which I have access to. So I'm actually looking at 3 different speed figures. I like it better when they agree, because that means there's less of a chance that somebody, that the speed figure was incorrect, or even off a little bit. like I said, sometimes they don't agree at all. They're not even close, and that raises a question mark with me. Sometimes I look at the time for them too. Like on a big day, like when the Belmont Stakes coming up this weekend, I'll actually also look at the time form figures for that day. So I'll have 4 sets of speed figures. I know some people say, well, it's confusing or something. It doesn't bother me. I'm used to looking at these figures, and I don't pick the the horses based only on speed figures. I'm just using that as part of a guide. I mean, I also look at naturally the trips, how the trainers are doing, and track bias, and all sorts of things. Key races. In fact, with this horse, one of the main reasons why I like the 2-horse here was because he had, these horses he had faced. Like this horse, Tiger's Legacy. If he had been racing in this field at Parks, he would have won by like 20 lengths. I mean, he was a classy horse, not a classy horse, but a much classier horse than this horse is facing in this field. And so is this horse, the horse that finished 3rd in this race. So he was just facing much better horses. I knew that because I did some research. I went back and I looked at the race he came out of. So, with speed figures, you have to, you can't always just put so much emphasis just on one number. And that's why it's good when a horse has a body of work and you can kind of look at the numbers and look at his speed figures and see how consistent he is, how consistently he runs a good speed figure. You kind of want to take like an average, kind of get a snapshot of a horse rather than say, okay, well, he ran one good race. That could be, an over-evaluation in the past performances. They may have got the speed figure wrong that day because there may not have been that many dirt races. Like I was saying before, now with the turf racing, now you look at Gulfstream too. Like during the winter, they have that really good, meet at Gulfstream. But now they race on synthetic there. So they're racing on synthetic, dirt, and turf all on the same day sometimes. And that makes it hard to make speed figures for all 3 of those surfaces because they don't have a lot of races to average. So say you have 9 races, you run 3 on synthetic, 3 on turf, and 3 on dirt. Now all your figures are suspect to a certain, because it's harder to make figures if you don't have a lot of races to average. And of course different things happen too. Sometimes speed figures can be tricky too because the track can change during the day. Sometimes when I was doing speed figures, I would have a track variant where I had the track fast for the first 4 races, say 4/5 of a second fast, and then the last 5 races I had it 4/5 of a second slow. Right? Why? Weather changes, wind, rain. Sometimes the track could have been very fast early because they had some water in it from the day before because it had rained a little bit the night before, and then it dried out and it got muddy, deeper, and it got slower. So these are all these things you have to take into consideration. It's a lot of work. I mean, doing the figures is a lot of work. That's why, after doing it for 10 years, I don't want to do it anymore. And I don't think I need to do them, because I understand how to use figures, and I have, like I said, I have other things that I use too. And I use a lot of pace handicapping, with my computer systems and everything. But naturally, the figures do give you a pretty good idea of horses' ability and kind of makes it a little bit easier to eliminate horses and to get a look at the field, like the overall quality of the field. It is a very useful number when they're accurate. If you look at tracks that run, mostly dirt races, like I mentioned, Aqueduct during the winter where it's all dirt. Oaklawn Park, they run all dirt. Parks during the winter, all dirt. Those figures you tend to be more accurate because you have all those dirt races and you don't have to dealing with all these other surfaces. So I just wanted to mention that. Speed figure handicapping, of course, is an interesting subject. If you want me to write more, to talk more about speed figures and how to use them, you can comment below. I may do some more speed handicapping videos because it is an interesting topic that a lot of people are interested in who play the horses. And remember, if you subscribe to my channel, I'd appreciate it. That helps me to be able to keep doing the channel. If you click on the like button, you'll get little messages in your email when I have a new video. So anyway, let's enjoy the Saratoga 4-day meet coming up. I'll have the Belmont Stakes selections, by the way. I'll put them on my website, handicapwinners.com. But thanks for listening, and good luck.